This video is brought to you by John Robson Guitar Tuition. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting the channel by enrolling on a course, purchasing some guitar lessons or a t-shirt, or you can join my Patreon. Now, on with the show. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. Now then, it's Tuesday, and I usually do a video on a Tuesday when I'm talking about my top 5 favourite performances by a specific artist or band. We're still going to do a top 5 list today, but it's a slightly different one because, you see, the other day I got this email from a chap called Andy.
Hi John, I just saw one of your old videos where you talk about guitars you drooled over as you were learning. How about doing a similar video but focusing on specific individual guitars? A particular guitar owned or played by one of your heroes. Not just the make and model, the actual guitar. Think of it as a bucket list of great guitars that shaped your tastes and styles of playing. Cheers from sunny Cornwall. Andy.
So there you go, bucket list guitars, one-off guitars, specific individual guitars that were owned by, an iconic player that, something that shaped the musical tastes of the listener, if you like. And I'm sure you all have, a list a lot longer than 5 guitars, perhaps mine certainly is, of instruments like that. But we're going to go through my top 5 today, starting with
Greeny Moor.
Yes, indeed, Greeny Moor. If you don't know the story of this guitar, well, I'm sure you probably do, but there's bound to be one or two people who don't know the backstory. Essentially, early Fleetwood Mac, the incarnation of the band with Peter Green. Peter owned a 1959 Gibson Les Paul that had some kind of either trick wiring going on, or some people say it was, the wiring of the pickup or the magnet on the pickup. No one really knows for certain. There are so many conflicting stories about it, but it gave it a rather unique kind of nasal, hollowed out, beautiful, haunting sound when the pickup selector was in the middle position. And, that is the guitar that you hear on all the early Fleetwood Mac recordings: Albatross, Need Your Love So Bad, Man of the World, Green Manalishi, Jigsaw Puzzle Blues, all of those great things featured that guitar. And then when Peter became a little bit of a recluse and decided he didn't want to be part of the music industry anymore, there was a young guitarist he'd taken under his wing by the name of Gary Moore, who Gary was absolutely enamoured with Peter's playing and, of course, his gorgeous Les Paul. And Peter told Gary, sell your guitar, whatever you get for it, give that money to me and this one's yours. And that is the story of how Gary got his hands on the guitar. And that was a big part of Gary's career for many years. He had other Les Pauls. I think there were other 59s involved there. And eventually, obviously, he had his own Gibson signature Les Paul. But that was, pretty much his number one Les Paul. It's the guitar you hear on Parisian Walkways. I'm not sure if it's the one he used on Still Got the Blues, but certainly it's the guitar that you hear a lot of in Gary Moore's latter years blues period, until 2007, when, not entirely sure why, but I've heard various stories about Gary had to cancel some gigs because of an injury, and the insurance didn't pay out, and I think he needed to raise some money quickly, so unfortunately the guitar had to go, and it went through the hands of various private collectors, and eventually, now as you can see from that picture, it's owned by Kirk Hammett of Metallica. And I kind of like that because Kirk is a guitar player. He's not a collector. I'm sure he does collect guitars, but he's first and foremost a guitar player. This guitar is a beautiful guitar, and it deserves to be played, and it deserves to be heard, and indeed it is being played and it is being heard. Kirk still uses it on stage and, makes beautiful music with it. This is a truly iconic guitar. A guitar that has been through the hands of one famous player is usually enough to elevate an instrument status, but to go through the hands of 3 iconic players, dear me, that's why this one deserves a place on the list. Next,
Blacky.
Okay, yes, Blacky, Eric Clapton's famous Mongrel Stratocaster. Eric tells the story. He's told various different versions of this story over the years, but essentially when he was on tour in the States in, I think, the late 60s or early 70s, Stratocasters, used Stratocasters, what we would call today vintage Stratocasters, were, as they say, as cheap as chips. You could pick them up for next to no money, and he did, and brought various ones back to the UK. I think he said he gave one to George Harrison and one to Steve Winwood, and, you know, and essentially just out of the ones that were left, he took I think the neck off one and the body off another, and maybe the neck pickup off another guitar and the bridge pickup off another guitar. Essentially made a bits and pieces, essentially a parts caster from different bits and pieces of old Strats that he'd bought in the US when he was on tour. And it was a winning formula, this guitar, for me. I don't think Eric's had a better sound than he got out of this Blacky Mongrel Stratocaster. I've said this before. This is a bit of a paradox, that Eric's best guitar sound also sort of coincided with what even he himself describes as a bit of a fallow patch in his career, i.e. most of the 70s and most of the 80s. But every now and again, that spark would just kind of click in, and Eric would discover his mojo again. He would become that enthused 19-year-old or 20-year-old that played on the Blues Breakers album. And, you know, when that kind of muse came calling, he was absolutely on form, and never better than when he had Blacky in his hands. Like all of the guitars I'm talking about in this video, I'm going to link to at least one clip of the guitar in action down in the description, so go and check it out. For me, the two performances that just absolutely blow me away with Blacky are the guest appearance that Eric did on the Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking album by Roger Waters. The title track on that album, the solo from the title track on that album, is just electrifying, I think, and it's just such an iconic Strat sound. You know, it's you know, for me, it's just distilled essence of how you want a Stratocaster to sound. And also, Eric played the same guitar on the famous 1985 or 86, I think it was, Carl Perkins' Blue Suede Shoes Rockabilly session, where he came out and had a jam with Carl and the band, and that's a great gig. I've mentioned it many times on this channel. I'll probably link to that one down below as well, to go and check it out. Some great playing from Eric, and what a Strat tone. An absolutely iconic guitar. Really, really did turn me on to the sound of Strats for a long time. So that's why this one is on the list. Next,
Hank's Strat.
Yes, indeed. How could I talk about iconic electric guitars and not mention at least another Stratocaster? This one, of course, is the one that, well, it's Hank Marvin. It's the Shadows. Need I say any more? But I will. One of my first memories, let alone musical memories, but one of my first memories is of hearing the Shadows. We had this freak weather event when I was knee-high to a grasshopper, like really young, a toddler, you know. And the sky went black as night in the middle of the day, and you know, I was a young'un. I was scared, and the TV went off. I think we were watching, you know, the Flower Pot Men or something like that. And the only thing that me granny, who was babysitting me at the time, could do to kind of entertain me was put the long wave radio on, and Apache by the Shadows came on. I'd never heard anything like it before. Suddenly, all this thunder and lightning and golf ball-sized hailstones that were happening outside were completely gone, and I was just transfixed by this wonderful, wonderful sound. And, you know, all I knew, you know, from as early as I could think about it was I wanted a red electric guitar. Then when I found out that red electric guitar was actually a Fender Stratocaster, dear me, that was another thing that made me, you know, kind of really switch on to Strats. This was, as well as being an iconic guitar for, you know, being responsible for all of the Shadows' early output, it's also worth mentioning that it was the first ever Fender Stratocaster in the UK. There was some kind of post-war import ban on, you know, kind kind of dealers and wholesalers importing, things from overseas. I think it was some way of trying to boost British industry, after the war years. And, but there was no kind of bar on people privately importing things. So, given that Hank was the guitarist in Cliff's backing band at the time, Cliff Richard. Cliff wanted Hank to have the best guitar, so he said to Hank, "What do you want?" And Hank pointed to the picture of, the Chirping Crickets album, Buddy Holly, and said, "I want one of those guitars." And that's how come Hank got the first, Fender Stratocaster in the UK. Beautiful, beautiful guitar. So many happy memories of my childhood associated with listening to old Shadows records, and just that gorgeous, gorgeous tone that Hank got out of it. A truly iconic guitar, not just for the Shadows connection, but historic, the first Strat in the UK. So I think that's why that one deserves a place on the list. Next,
the Stradivarius Tele.
Yes, the Stradivarius Telecaster. Now this one isn't as well known, I think, as it should be. There was a group of well-renowned session musicians in LA in the 60s and 70s. They were affectionately known as the Wrecking Crew. It wasn't a perfectly crystallized lineup. It wasn't always this guy on drums and that guy on bass and, whoever else. It was sort of very much a collective, but together they played on so many iconic recordings. And I'm just kind of going to take a look at a browser page that I've got open somewhere. There we go. Yes. Selected recordings by the Wrecking Crew. This is only a fraction of the tracks they played on. The Lonely Bull by Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. He's a Rebel by the Crystals. The Do Ron Ron by the Crystals. Surf City by Jan and Dean. Be My Baby by the Ronettes. I Get Around, the Beach Boys. Little Old Lady from Pasadena, Dan and Jean. Everybody Loves Somebody by Dean Martin. Mr. Tambourine Man, the Byrds. California Dreamin' by the Mamas and the Papas. I Got You, Babe by Sonny and Cher. Strangers in the Night by Frank Sinatra. Elusive Butterfly by Bob Lind. Up, Up and Away by The Fifth Dimension. You get the idea. These guys played on lots and lots of recordings. And one of the prominent guitarists in the Wrecking Crew was a chap called Tommy Tedesco. Let me see if I can find a picture of him. Here we go. Yeah, there he is there. And as you can see, this guitar appeared on at least one Sammy Davis Jr. session. Other things that I don't know why this has just popped into my head, but that guitar I know for a fact was played on the Bonanza theme tune. It has appeared on so many iconic recordings that it's got to be considered an iconic guitar, and I would love just one time to get my hands on it and just kind of feel the history of it, really. So there you go, Tommy Tedesco and his Stradivarius Telecaster, often rumoured to be the most recorded electric guitar of all time. So I think that's why that one deserves a place on the list. Next,
the Beast.
Yes, indeed, the Beast. Now, this is the guitar, as you can see, that is still owned, in fact, by Bernie Marsden of Whitesnake, Moody Marsden, and, what was it, Ashton Pearson Lord he was with, and UFO as well. He's been around a bit, as our Bernie, and a canny player he is as well. As you know, I did the Fool for Your Loving solo, when was it, yesterday, when you're watching this? Yes. Fantastic guitar player, fantastic iconic tone. This is one of those things that I think that proves that not all guitars are created equal. It's all very well talking about the Les Paul sound, but this guitar just has, an extra layer on top of that. Bernie tells the story that for many years he thought that this was the Beano guitar, the guitar that Eric played on the Blues Breakers album, and I was almost tempted to put that guitar into, into this video, but I thought, no, I've already had one Eric Clapton guitar. I wanted to try and be a little bit more diverse, basically. The story is that a chap turned up at one of Bernie's gigs and tried to sell him this Les Paul, and Bernie's going, yeah, I've already got a Les Paul. He says, yeah, but try this one. He says, well, okay, just basically shut the guy up, And so he goes out and plays the second half with this guitar this guy's lent him, and everybody in the band was saying, have you turned your amp up 5 notches or something? It was just such a more powerful, sustaining, toneful, resonant guitar that Bernie thought, well, that's it, I've got to have this now. And, it was a lot of money. This is the early 70s, and I think the figure that's in my head that I remember from an interview with Bernie is that he said it was about 350 quid back then, which was like seriously proper big money back in those days. And so somehow or other he kind of put some sort of deal together where he was able to get the guitar, and keep it. And when he got it off this guy who'd literally just randomly turned up at a gig to try and sell Bernie this guitar, this chap had said, yeah, it's a fantastic instrument, isn't it? Makes me wonder why Eric ever got rid of it. And that did start a little bit of a kind of is it or isn't it debate. Bernie, to be fair to him, never ever said this is Eric Clapton's old guitar. He just revelled in the mystique that, well, maybe it might have been. It since turns out that this guitar, the Beast, is a 59 Les Paul, and the guitar that Eric used on the Beano album is a 1960 Les Paul. So they are not the same guitar at all. But wouldn't it be poetic if they were? That would have truly made it an iconic guitar, a more iconic guitar than it is. As you know from the video I did a couple of weeks ago, or was it last week or whenever, early Whitesnake, the Moody Marsden era, are a band that are very close to my heart, and I think this guitar defined the sound of that early Whitesnake period, which for me makes it a truly iconic instrument in its own right, even if it wasn't once owned by Mr. Clapton, and that is why it deserves a place on this list. So there you go, folks. Let me turn Bernie off. Now, there we go. There you go, folks. Those are my 5 bucket list guitars, the 5 guitars that I would love to get my hands on and just feel what the frets feel like, feel what the neck feels like, plug it in, hear how it sounds. It would be such a thrill to get my hands on any of those. It's never going to happen, but we can always dream, can't we? If you have a similar list, and I'm imagining you probably do, then please leave it below, and if you can be bothered, leave a line or two about what it is that means that guitar deserves a place on your bucket list of iconic guitars. And that's pretty much it for today, folks. Hope you found the video reasonably entertaining, and if you have, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so, and why not give me a like while you're at it. Don't forget the live stream Friday 5 PM UK time, where we sit and talk about guitars. I'm imagining that this video will crop up in the conversation. We talk about guitars, we talk about music, we drink beer for an hour or so. It's a fantastic way to kick off the weekend, and I would love to see you there if you can make it. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.